Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Sudhanshu Kumar, and I'm a farmer practicing farming for the last 33 years in a village called Nayanagar, which is in Samastipur district, Bihar. Um, my experience with lychee goes back to around 30 years. That's when I planted my first orchard. So, in this video conference that we are having, I would like to explain to you how you go about planting a lychee orchard and how do you look after it, and then the harvesting, post-harvest management, how do you do different types of marketing, and how do you prepare yourself for that market to meet those standards and quality to get the best rates and the profit from a lychee orchard. So basically, when we start off, the land is the most important part, where we have to see lychee loves alluvial soil. It loves more sandy soil than clay, because lychee cannot tolerate waterlogging in its root zone. It can tolerate waterlogging, let's say, for 5 days, maximum 10 days, then it starts affecting the tree. So there's no chance of putting up an orchard where even in the monsoon season, water collects for continuously for, let's say, 15, 20 days. So it has to be well drained. It has to be more sandy, the soil, and well sloped. You can't have low-lying areas in the orchard. And when you select that land, then you have to decide as per the quality of the land. So out here, what we do in Bihar is where the land is very fertile, the plants grow very rigorously, we tend to have the plant to plant and line to line distance a little more spaced out. If the land is of not very good quality, then we would like to have the plant to plant and line to line distance little less. Standard is 8 meters. If it's a very fertile soil, you will take it up to 9 meters, 10 meters maximum. Sorry, if it's a bad soil, then you decrease the line to line and plant to plant distance. And if the land is not very fertile, then you would like to bring it to 6 meters. Yeah, 6 to 6.5 meters. So, and of course, on the other hand, you have the choice of also doing lychee in high density. But before you decide on whether you want to do lychee in a traditional way or whether you want to do it in high density method, high density is not meant for lazy farmers. High density, we talk of high density means you have to be on your toes always, because there is numerous number of prunings that you do right throughout the year to make sure the plant has enough space around it. It doesn't interfere with the other plant, which usually happens if you just let it grow. So if someone wants to start lychee, he can do both, the standard at 8 by 8 meter, or he can go into high density, but not getting very good results in high density lychee, because you have to be very meticulous in controlling the branches, planning out the branches, keeping a cup shape, spreading the branches out, making sure you don't have any V structured branches, because lychee being a very brittle plant, it tends to from the V joint in when there's a cyclone or when it's very windy something. So these are small things you have to pay attention when you start planting and then looking after the trees. So once you've decided on the type of land you're going to use, the distance that you want to plant, varying from 6 meters to 9 meters, depending upon the quality of the land, then the most important thing that comes to mind is how do you prepare that land for planting. So usually what we do out here is in the month of April, or rather the concept out here is to dig a pit 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, and leave it in the sunlight. What we do, we leave it, we dig the pit in April. 1 month, sun literally cooks the soil inside. So if there's any insects, if there's any pest inside, they leave that pit or they die because of the heat. And once we've left the pit open for a month, then we mix different types of fertilizer. It is single superphosphate, cow dung, and a little bit of anti-termite, any pesticide. And then we fill up the pit. When we start filling up the pit, we do it 1 feet. First, we put mud inside the pit at 1 feet level. 1/3 the fertilizer we put into the pit. Then we mix it up properly. Then we put another foot of mud inside the pit. Then put in the next 1/3 part of the fertilizer. And then in the end, we level up the pit and we put the remaining part of the fertilizer and mix it. And then we collect all the remaining mud and make it into a small mound over the pit. So usually when you dig up it and you have to fill it up again, there will always be excess soil. So that has to be left in a mound so that when the first rain hits the soil, so when the soil starts settling down, so all the excess soil that you have put on the pit, it levels off. This is very important is because when you dig a pit and you plant directly, what happens in the first heavy rain that comes down, the mud will start settling down and your tree that you planted will slope off to one side because of the soil moving underneath. So we have to be very careful of this. Soil compaction is needed. You can suppose if you have a micro irrigation installed and you want to speed up this whole process, then you have to compact the soil, fill up the pit so that at the time of planting, you have a firm base so that the plant doesn't slope off or bend or tilt when there's excessive rain. Usually, we would like to wait for the first rain before planting, but now with all different system of micro irrigation and piped water, you can speed up the whole process by giving overdose of water in the pit so that the mud settles down. And once the soil settles down, then you plant the tree so that when you plant an erect tree and when the soil settles down, it doesn't tilt to one side. So either you let nature do it for you, which was usually what people did in the past. But if you have micro irrigation and other pipe system installed, you can hasten up the whole process and you can do it at your own time. So earlier people used to wait for the monsoons to do the planting so that you didn't have to water so much. But now with micro irrigation, it actually doesn't matter when you want to plant it and how you want to plant it. You can speed up the whole thing by just applying all this technology in your field when you're building up a lychee orchard. The next most important part is after when we plant the lychee tree, it is after every 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, when the branches start coming out. So we right from the start, and we have to plan out how the branches are going to come out of the tree. So it has to be a cup shape. It has to be empty in the center. If we want branches on the all sides, let's say 4 branches. And when these 4 branches attain a sufficient height, then again you start clipping them so that there's no inward growing of branch. There's no V-shaped branch. So any V that is forming, you chop off one side because that V will sooner or later snap or your whole tree will split from the center. So no V branches, Y branches, we have to make sure that they're all Y branches. And in this way, because you will not realize how important this is. It is only when we've planted trees and what we experienced after 15 years, 20 years, if even a slight cyclone came, the branches to snap. And then we used to wonder exactly what happened. So later on, we found out from scientists that planning of the branches right from the start is important. And the best planting material you get, I think it will be worth taking the trouble of getting it from the National Research Center in Muzaffarpur. They have the best plants, the best planting material in other plants. And the tree should be 1.5 to 2 years old. a lot of people have this tendency of trying to plant a taller tree, thinking that you're gaining that much time. But actually, you need 2-year plants so that the root development takes place and you can train the tree, the main branches, as per the specification, so that in the future, the branches are perfect for the tree's health and you don't have unnecessary snapping and breaking of branches, because after looking after a tree for so long, suppose at 7 years, 8 years, or 9 years, 10 years, the main branch snaps off. So it's a lot of wasted time and you're going back that much. And we experienced this in my orchard when I planted it in around 92, 93. So, I mean, we were still trying to learn about lychee, and that time the National Research Center for Lychee hadn't even opened in Muzaffarpur in Bihar. But later we came to know that these were the mistakes we made, and this is how you have to literally train the tree to grow in a proper manner, so that in the future the tree doesn't break off, the major branches don't break off. So soil type, land, how do you prepare the land before planting, the planting material. I mean, you should take the trouble of waiting rather than rushing in and buying whatever material is available, because see, the result of your decision, you're going to get the result after 5-10 years of actual how productive the tree is, how well the tree is shaped up, was it from a good stock. So all this you'll realize after 5 years, 10 years minimum. And in 10 years time, maybe a local nursery person or the person you bought from, he won't even be traceable. So we should take that much trouble. I mean, if the quantity is small, a group of farmers can pool in together, so that I know the transportation cost is going to be a lot getting plant material from Bihar. But a lot of farmers have done it. I know farmers from Kurg, from Lakhimpur in UP and other places who have talked to me and they have done this. And they now after 10 years, after 5 years, when we keep following up with them, so even they have realized, and even I have seen how much of a difference it makes if the planting material is good. Don't fall into the trap of trying to plant bigger and taller trees thinking that you're gaining that much time, because ultimately it shows on your productivity towards the end. Even mango tree, same. The plant material, the plant should not be very old. If it's a young plant, the root formation is better in your orchard, and the spread out of the tree is better if you buy a good planting material and you train the tree properly. Next, right throughout the growing period, the pruning process has to go on meticulously. Especially when in the flush time, around 3 times when the major flushes come out. At that time, you have to be prompt and start clipping the branches. See, the earlier you do it, it's better, because the plant is consuming nutrients from the soil. And if the branch becomes big and then you cut it, so that that branch has taken up the nutrients and then you cut it, so the net result is you are losing. So that those nutrients, if they are taken up by the main branches, they'll grow faster and will get better results. So the pruning has to be prompt. Once you see the branches are defined, you have to go about pruning it, so that unnecessary nutrient consumption is not done by those branches, and then ultimately you cut and throw it off. So that much nutrient from the soil has gone for waste. So pruning is very important in any tree, in any orchard, whether it's mango, lychee, any fruit. So lychee, it is more important because the lychee branches are very brittle. If you compare it to mango, the mango has an elasticity in the branch. So it can really tolerate a lot of wind and cyclone. But lychee, it refuses to bend. So from one point, it snaps like hard steel. It doesn't have the capacity to bend. So you have to be very careful in shaping the tree. Approximately usually we don't let the plants bear fruits in the early 2-3 years. 4 years, because ready that weight. Unless it's a high density orchard, you're providing trellis support and things like that, and it is taking limited amount of lychee from the trees. So that is a different game. But in general, you have to make sure the main trunk and the main branches are strong enough to bear the load of the fruits. Once you feel okay, the branches are strong enough, then you start leaving the flowers and the fruit setting. Don't prune and remove them. So starting from, let's say, fourth to fifth year and going up to 10th year, that is the time when the fruiting, when you start keeping the fruit around 12th year, 13th year, the trees in the actual commercial production. So there is a waiting period. That's why people are now talking about high density farming, where the number of trees is 6 to 7 times or 8 times the normal trees, so that you can start getting a harvest earlier. Because if you just need only 30 kg, 40 kg from a tree, so not number of so much in that 1 acre of land, and it pays back in a quantity which you would get, let's say, at 10 years from a adult tree. So these are decisions you have to take of how vigilant you can be. Should you go in for high density? Should you go in for standard density? It all depends on how laborious you are, how attentive you can be, and how much time you're giving to the orchard. Then once the tree starts fruiting, there's a whole schedule that you have to maintain of irrigation. Initially, when the tree is growing, you give as per need, you give the irrigation. In the summertime, the interval is short. In the winter time, when in the monsoons, you don't have to irrigate. And so this is again depending upon your geographical location and exactly where your orchard is. The irrigation schedule, there's a thumb rule, but you have to tweak it as per your local conditions. As far as if you have installed a micro irrigation, let's say a drip in your lychee orchard, it's very easy. And one shot, no matter how big the orchard is, you just flip a button and 40 to 50 liters of water, 60 liters of water is more than enough for a 10-year tree. Of course, again, depending upon your climatic zone, this can be increased to 80 liters, that can be brought down to 50 liters. But then this has to be done every 4 days, 5 days, again, depending upon whether it is summer or winter. But once the tree starts flowering, then all the rules change. So lychee requires a hibernating period that is approximately from end of the monsoon in the northern parts, where we have to let the tree go into hibernation for 3 months, 4 months. Colder the climate, more harsher the conditions, more the tree hibernates, so that in January, mid-January, the flush that starts coming out, so the flowering takes place more profusely. So you can't go around on the field in, let's say, October, November for the northern part. And you can't irrigate at that time, because once you provide nutrients, you have a vegetative growth. And we've seen this happening. Many times, a lot of people, they start watering the tree just flowering. At flowering time, it is very susceptible when you are irrigating it, because a lot of people irrigate during flowering or just flowering, and you end up with all the flowers dropping off. So it is very important. Once the lychee fruit has set, that is when it is the size of, let's say, 1 centimeter, that is the time you start irrigating, and that is the time you start your preventive sprays for especially the leaf rolling caterpillar and mites. Though lychee is not infested with a lot of insects or pests, except for the one of the biggest worries of lychee is the seed borer. Now, I would like to briefly touch on that, is because The timing of your spray is very important. If you miss the timing, no matter what you spray, you will have a seed boring caterpillar when the fruit matures and is ready for harvesting. And at that time, no one is going to buy your fruit. And the first sign of that is once a pinpoint redness just at the base of the stalk. That's how the lychee starts becoming red. Now, when this first dot of a red appears on the plant, this signals to the fruit fly to go and lay the eggs, and they inject the egg just under the stalk. So once the egg is injected, no matter what you spray, it's not going to help. So the timing is very important and the period is very important. If you don't hit this timing, no matter how good your fruit is, and if someone peels that fruit and a worm comes out of it, then your product, no one is going to buy it. So these are some of the things we have to pay attention. Once the fruit setting takes place, then continuous provision of moisture is very important. Of course, you can't over moisture the soil, because over irrigate the soil, because then you will have other fungal problems and all that. So the timing is very important. Once you harvest the fruits, and that is the most important time for pruning, for making sure there's a 3 feet, 5 feet gap between plants, line to line, plant to plant. There shouldn't be any unnecessary branches growing inside the tree, because they all waste. They don't flower, they just consume nutrients. And that is the time after harvesting when you prune. So every 3 years, drastic pruning, every year, mild pruning. So you have to make sure the line is from tree to tree and plant to plant, is a distance of 3 feet maintained. And that is the time you plow in June in the north, and you plow the field and make a ring at the periphery of the tree, and then you apply the fertilizers, single superphosphate, potash, and urea, and in a ring form, and then cover it up, and then just let the monsoon do the work. And if there's no rain, then you can give a light irrigation. So this is basically the complete cycle of the lychee, taking care of a lychee. Now, when we go to the marketing part, so there are 3 types of lychee that we market. Number 1, the premium, that is a fresh fruit. Number 2, the second grade, which is the slightly stained and scorched lychee, which only the peel is affected, but the lychee inside is perfect. So the first quality lychee goes as fresh, scorched, burnt or browned on the top. That goes for canning. And the third, which may be slightly affected below the skin, but they are perfect for pulping, like freshly cracked lychee or little overscorched lychee. So they go into the pulping sector. So let's say in the pulping sector, you will get around 16 to 21 rupees, depending on where you are, for the pulping variety. For the canning variety, you get anywhere between 41, 42, 45. And for fresh fruit, depending upon where you're selling it, you should hit, if you're giving premium quality fruit, then you should hit around 130, 120 rupees a kg. And otherwise, if these are 3 categories you have to pay attention to, which if you're growing lychee, you have to find out who is the pulping, who is the nearest person who does pulping, where can you send it for canning, and which is the market where you can send for fresh fruit. Fresh fruit gives you the most premium rate, but then it is the most difficult segment, because you have a shelf life of just 2 days, 48 hours. So within 48 hours, if you can reach the consumer, you'll get the best rates. And that is always, that is a big game. I mean, how do you do this? So you have to have your network, your transportation, your harvesting team. You have to work in a precise manner. Though we did an experiment with NRC Lychee and Baba Atomic Research Center, and we were fortunate to be part of that, where they have developed a system of preserving the color, the skin, it doesn't, the browning, to control the browning, to control the color, and control the fungal and bacterial infection. And in a solar container, cool solar container, we were able to keep the lychee for 35 to 75 days in pristine conditions. though after 35 days, because we didn't have a septic packing system at the farm level. So after 35 days, we did have bacterial fungal issues below the skin, but 35 days, it's quite a long time to transport lychee anywhere. Aspect one can explore to get this technology so that you can play around with time as far as lychee is concerned. What we've done is we've caught people, the pulping people, the canning people in advance, and over a period of time, we've been able to build a network with them so that all categories of lychee we can supply. The premium lychee, we do marketing with partners in Delhi, where we try and push the lychee into a person's home within 24 hours. So like when we are plucking lychee in the morning at 9, around by 3, we send it to Patna. So it reaches Patna by evening. And by 7 p.m. flight, it goes to Delhi. It reaches Delhi by 9. And it goes to the distribution center to our partners we have partnered with. And the next day by 9, just like Swiggy or Zomato, they are delivery boys who deliver the lychee to a person's home who's ordered, like you order anything online, prepaid. So that is a very assured market, but of course it is a very, very tricky market because the timing is so important. You can't miss that time. Otherwise, if you can get this act together, it gives you 3 times the price of what you'll be selling locally. So marketing, those are the points you have to look after. And what I feel, if I have a 18-acre plot, 15-acre plot of lychee, which has around 1,100 trees, and what we've done in that to control this quality, no matter what we did, the scorching part, the fruit dropping, the flower dropping, we were not able to control. And the only way we got it controlled was when we installed a drip system and a sprinkler, micro sprinkler. So we were using the micro sprinkler to manage the microclimate of the orchard, and the drip we were using for irrigation. So let's say when the west winds blow in North India, they are very dry winds, and that can ruin the lychee crop within 4 days. So that's the time when we start off the sprinklers. So it maintains the humidity in the orchard, lowers the temperature. So that helps in preventing scorching and cracking of lychee. And in online, if you look at Farm Innovators of India, it is a publication by ICAR. So there they have taken this, in one page, they have mentioned this thing that we use for managing microclimate through a micro sprinklers, which is something that it has paid us huge dividends in the lychee orchard. We were literally able to double, triple our productivity and quality just by installing an added micro sprinkler, and it really worked wonders. And if anyone doing lychee, I think you should try this out, and you will get instant results from it. So the maximum we've sold 15 acres of lychee through direct marketing, and this is around last 5-6 years data I'm giving, is around for 32 lakh rupees. But on an average, because we have the China variety and the Shahi variety of lychee, so China is alternate bearing, but still you can hit an average of 25 lakh. But suppose if I were to market all my produce online, so a 15-acre lychee orchard can hit around 60 lakh rupees. But of course, you'll be able to market 40% of your fruit as premium, another 40 will go as canning fruit, and 20% goes as pulping. And the whole schedule is how fast you can harvest. Every day the harvest is delayed, the percentage of scorched and cracked fruit keeps increasing. So when the season starts, we will be hitting 80% fresh fruits, perfect fruits. Every 2 days, the percentage will keep going down by 5%, 10%, 5%, 10%, till to the fag end of the harvesting, you will get around 60% canning and pulping and 40% only premium fruit. So these are the overall schedules. Of course, it's a very vast topic, not possible in half an hour. But if people are interested, you can always phone in, mail, and of course, you can always visit. Just a couple of days back, some lady farmers from Chennai had come visiting to my farm. They stayed out here also, and they were very happy with what they saw, because seeing is believing. So you're most welcome. And through agriculture.com, I would like to give an open invitation. If anyone wants further information or wants to see things with their own eyes, you're most welcome. If there are any questions, I'll take the questions now.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhanshu Kumar, for the detailed talk. Now I'll take up some questions. So the first question is, what is the minimum investment required for lychee cultivation?
Minimum, right now what I keep advising people is there are two parameters you have to meet before you can even think of going into horticulture, any horticultural produce, whether it's vegetable, whether it's fruit. One, you have to fence your land. Fencing is very important, because at least in North Bihar, in our areas, if we don't fence, the problem with the animals is so huge that setting up an orchard becomes very difficult. And in the Manrega, the Narega, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme that's running right now by the government is giving 100% subsidy for barbed wire fencing. This scheme exists, but a lot of people don't know about it. They are not availing it. And at least in North India, and I think in South India also, micro irrigation, there's a 90% for SC/ST and 80% subsidy for general people. Taking all this into consideration, or let's say if we just put this aside, so 1 acre of barbed wire fencing takes around 90,000 rupees. But more the acres, right, more the number, as the land keeps growing, the cost of fencing keeps coming down. So let's say for a 10-acre barbed wire fencing will cost you around 45 to 50,000. For a 20-acre plot, the barbed wire fencing cost will come down to around 30,000 rupees an acre. So that you can get a rough idea from that. Drip irrigation at the lychee 8x8 meter, if you install only drip system, that will cost you approximately around 90,000 to 1 lakh, depending upon which company you get it from. But then 90% to 80% is subsidy. So your per acre share will come to around 13 to 14,000 rupees, the farmer share. Other than that, the planting material will cost you, one plant will cost you between 60 to 100 rupees. And suppose you have to transport it, so that transportation cost is extra. Digging of pit and fertilizer, these are nominal costs. You can do it with a tractor, auger attached to a tractor. So that cost really comes to 5 rupees pit. And the fertilizer cost is there. So roughly, let's say if you start off an acre, just 1 acre of lychee, and if you are not taking any subsidies, so fencing will come to around 80,000, around 80-90,000 for the micro irrigation system. That is without the sprinkler. Sprinkler will be added expense. Just the sprinklers will be an added expense. The main pipeline will be the same. Planting material around at 8x8 meters, and an acre is around 80 trees. So that's around 8,000. I mean, other expenses are very minor. The main expenses, micro irrigation, fencing, pit, fertilizer, plant material together in an acre will come to around 20,000 rupees. So basically, you're looking at something around 2.5 lakh rupees for the initial stage. Of course, then you will need a 5-year period where the plant becomes commercially viable, so that looking after is pruning and annual fertilizer and irrigation, which is a nominal expense. Does that answer your question, or would you like to?
No, it's answered. Yeah. Okay. And next question is, are there different varieties of lychee or only one variety?
Commercially in North India, the premium lychee is called Shahi lychee, and the other variety is called in Bihar, we call it the China variety, Chinese variety. And there's of course the Bedana variety, and there's a late Bedana variety. There's a new variety that has come up in NRC Lychee Muzaffarpur, which is called Gandaki Sampada. That is again a late variety of lychee. So basically we have an early variety, mid variety, and a very late variety. But then the late variety is, it doesn't bear profusely. The Shahi gives you quantity. The China variety gives you quantity. So usually the China variety lychee goes for canning. The Shahi variety is eaten fresh. And of course, the second grade of that will also go in for canning. So for canning, eventually you get the same rate. But for fresh fruit, the Shahi variety fetches a premium.
Okay. And next question is, can lychee be grown in summer season? As you said, it cannot tolerate waterlogging.
So actually, summer is the harvesting time for us in Bihar. So when it is peak summer in like mid-May, end of May, so the temperature is soaring at that time at 42, 41, 43. So our harvesting takes place at this time. So at that time, irrigation is not an issue because around 15 days before harvesting. So in Bihar, lychee harvesting would start roughly on 15th May and go on till 15th June. So that is the time usually when we don't need irrigation, but the weather can really play a spoil spot at that time, because if it gets too hot, or we have a western hot wind that we call Lu around here, that really can destroy crops. But at this time in North India, we don't need irrigation. The whole game is how fast you can harvest.
Okay.
I don't know, in South India, I think May, June, you have your rains around September, October. The cyclones and the rain, usually in the last 2-3 months, and the lychee cycle is slightly different in South India, because in Kerala and the other places where the new lychee farms are being set up near Kurg and all that. So I think flowering takes place around September, July, I think end of July, August, mid-August, something like that. So it's completely diametrically becomes opposite. Though in South India, what I've heard is the fruiting is not very profuse, but because at that time nowhere in the world there is lychee, the rates, you can hit very high rates. So usually lychee starts from China, the season, and every 10 days is keep shifting, entering Southeast Asia, then Bangladesh, then West Bengal, then it moves to Bihar, then UP, then Punjab, goes into Pakistan, and then I think it ends up in Florida.
Okay.
By end of June.
Okay. And how much time does it take for the first harvest?
For the first harvest, see, lychee, the year you plant, it starts flowering.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is for the farmer to decide exactly when he'll start taking the fruit, because initial stage, the plant is too weak. So it can't even bear the load of one bunch of fruit. But then a lot of places, even in RC lychee at the 4th year, they have started providing a Y trellis and iron Y on which they tie up the branches. So it takes up the load. And this is done for high density farming, like what they do in California and other places with peach and apricot and things like that, where the younger trees, they have provided an iron trellis with wires, and branches are supported. So you can 3rd year, 4th year, you can start taking fruiting, but of course that entails an expense also. But usually in North India, especially in Bihar, we start taking fruiting from 4th to 5th year when the main trunk of the tree is strong enough to bear the load of the fruit. So either the tree becomes strong by itself to bear the fruit, or you provide external support to the tree, and that will decide from which you can start taking fruit. But commercially, it will become viable, let's say in the cities here, in high density. But in standard traditional distance and line spacing, I think a lychee orchard will become commercially viable in the 10th year. Of course, in between, you can take other crops between the lines.
Okay. And in which part of India is lychee grown in large quantity?
Bihar is the largest producer of lychee in India.
Okay.
And in Bihar, the district I belong to, and 3 districts along with my district, we've got the GI tag for calling a lychee Shahi lychee,
Okay.
which is the premium quality.
Okay. And can lychee be exported?
Yeah, I have tried that. I've sent lychee to Dubai. Trying to send lychee to Europe and America it's too big a challenge, because all the phyto conditions that you have to meet is so stringent, and lychee being such a fragile fruit. I don't know. I mean, we hear a lot in the news that is being exported to so and so country, but it usually doesn't sustain. But I don't know, after trying out the Baba Atomic Research Center, the technique of trying to preserve the fruit by giving it a treatment in 3 dips they have developed. So the lychee life can go up to 35 days. And then I suppose it can be exported anywhere in the world. Dubai is the best market to export lychee to, but what I experienced was sending lychee to South India and West India is more profitable than sending it out.
Okay. And I think you already answered this. What is the price of per sapling of lychee? You said somewhere 100 rupees.
It goes from 60 to 130, 40 rupees, depending upon from where you're buying it.
Okay. Okay. And now we have the final question. Do you help in marketing of lychee?
No, not yet, because there's so much lychee growing in Bihar. So the competition is very tough. So no, we are just able right now to market our own produce, which is around 100 tons. And we've not been able to build that capacity where we can take other people's lychee for marketing, because there's so many quality issues in lychee. A lot of people do not follow the protocols for good quality lychee. The size is very important, the sweetness is important, the color is important.
Right. Okay. Okay, Mr. Sudhanshu Kumar, I don't see any more questions from our participants. So now we have come to end of question round. On behalf of agricultureinformation.com, we like to thank you for a very detailed presentation and also answering all the questions in depth. And we also like to thank all the participants for joining this meeting. The meeting will now be closed.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, sir. Thank you.